Marmion, A Tale of Flood and Field, condensed by Sir Walter Scott, 1808. The breeze which swept away the smoke round Norham Castle rolled, when all the loud artillery spoke, with lightning flash and thunderstroke, as Marmion left the hold. It curled not Tweed alone, that breeze, for far upon Northumbrian seas it freshly blew and strong, where from high Whitby's cloistered pile, bound to St. Cuthbert's holy isle, it bore a bark along. Upon the gale she stooped her side, and bounded o'er the swelling tide, as she were dancing home. The merry seamen laughed to see their gallant ship so lustily furrowed the green sea foam. Much joy they in their honored freight, for on the deck, in chair of state, the abbess of St. Hilda placed, with 5 fair nuns the galley graced. Light was each simple boatswain there, save 2 who ill might pleasure share, the abbess and the novice Clare. The abbess was of noble blood, but early took the veil and hood. Ere upon life she cast a look, or knew the world that she forsook. Fair too she was, and kind had been, as she was fair, but ne'er had seen for her a timid lover sigh, nor knew the influence of her eye. Love to her ear was but a name, combined with vanity and shame. Sad was this voyage to the dame, summoned to Linden's Farn. She came there with St. Cuthbert's abbot old, and Teignmouth's prioress to hold a chapter of St. Benedict, for inquisition stern and strict on 2 apostates from the faith, and it need were to doom to death. Naught say I here of Sister Clare, save this, that she was young and fair, as yet a novice unprofessed, lovely and gentle, but distressed. She was betrothed to one now dead, or worse, who had dishonored fled. Her kinsman bade her given her hand to one who loved her for her land. Herself, almost heartbroken now, was bent to take the vestal vow, and shroud within St. Hilda's gloom her blasted hopes and withered bloom. But passions in the human frame oft put the lion's rage to shame, and jealousy by dark intrigue with sordid avarice and league had practiced with their bowl and knife against the mourner's harmless life. This crime was charged against those who lay prisoned in Cuthbert's islets gray, and now the vessel skirts the strand of mountainous Northumberland. Then from the coast they bore away and reached the holy island's bay. The tide did now its flood mark gain, and girdled in the saint's domain, for with the flow and ebb its style varies from continent to isle. Dry shod o'er sands twice every day, the pilgrims to the shrine find way. Twice every day the waves efface of staves and sandaled feet the trace. As to port the galley flew, higher and higher rose to view the castle, with its battled walls, the ancient monastery's halls, a solemn, huge, and dark red pile, placed on the margin of the isle. Soon as they neared his turret strong, the maidens raised St. Hilda's song, And with the sea wave and the wind, their voices sweetly shrill combined, and made harmonious close. Then answering from the sandy shore, half drowned amid the breakers' roar, according chorus rose. Down to the haven of the isle, the monks and nuns in order file from Cuthbert's cloisters grim, banner and cross and relics there to meet St. Hilda's maids they bear, and as they caught the sounds on air, they echoed back the hymn. The islanders in joyous mood rushed emulously through the flood to hail the bark to land. Conspicuous by her veil and hood, signing the cross, the abbess stood and blessed them with her hand. Suppose we now, the welcome said, suppose the convent banquet made all through the holy dome, through cloister, aisle, and gallery, wherever vestal maid might pry, no risk to meet unhallowed eye. The stranger sisters roam, till fell the evening damp with dew, and the sharp sea breeze coldly blew, for their even summer night is chill. Then, having strayed and gazed their fill, they closed around the fire, and all in turn essayed to paint the rival merits of their saint, a theme that ne'er can tire, a holy maid, for be it known that their saint's honor is their own. While round the fire such legends grow, far different was the scene of woe, where in a secret aisle beneath council was held of life and death. It was more dark and lone, that vault, than the worst dungeon cell. Old Colwolf built it, for his fault, in penitence to dwell, when he for caul and beads laid down the Saxon battle axe and crown. This den, which chilling every sense of feeling, hearing, sight, was called the vault of penitence, excluding air and light, was by the prelate Sexem made a place of burial for such dead as having dined in mortal sin might not be laid the church within. 'Twas now a place of punishment, whence if so loud a shriek were sent as reached the upper air, the hearers blessed themselves and said, the spirits of the sinful dead bemoan their torments there. But though in the monastic pile did of this penitential isle some vague tradition go, few only save the abbot knew where the place lay, and still more few were those who had from him the clue to that dread vault to go. Victim and executioner were blindfold when transported there. In low dark rounds the arches hung, from the rude rock the side walls sprung, the gravestones rudely sculpted o'er half sunken earth by time half wore, where all the pavement of the floor the mildew drops fell one by one, with tinkling plash upon the stone, a crescent in an iron chain, which served to light this drear domain. With dampened darkness seemed to strive, as if it scarce might keep alive, and yet it dimly served to show the awful conclave met below. There, met to doom in secrecy, were placed the heads of convents 3, all servants of Saint Benedict, the statues of whose order strict on iron table lay, in long black dress on seats of stone. Beneath were these 3 judges shown by the pale cresset's ray. The abbess of St. Hilda's there, sate for a space, with visage bare, until to hide her bosom swell in teardrops that for pity fell, she closely drew her veil. The unshrouded figure, as I guess, by her proud mane and flowing dress, is Teignmouth's haughty prioress, and she with awe looks pale, and he that ancient man whose sight has long been quenched by age's night, upon whose wrinkled brow alone nor ruth nor mercy's trace is shown, whose look is hard and stern. St. Cuthbert's abbot is his style, for sanctity called through the aisle the saint of Linden's Farn. Before them stood a guilty pair, but though an equal fate they share, yet one alone deserves our care. Her sex a page's dress belied, the cloak and doublet loosely tied, obscured her charms, but could not hide. Her cap down o'er her face she drew, and on that doubled breast she tried to hide the badge of blue, Lord Marmion's falcon crest. But at the prioress' command, a monk undid the silken band that tied her tresses fair, and raised the bonnet from her head, and down her slender form they spread in ringlets rich and rare. Constance de Beverley they know, sister professed of Fortevran, whom the church numbered with the dead, for broken vows and convent fled. When thus her face was given to view, although so pallid was her hue, it did a ghastly contrast bear to those bright ringlets glistening fair. Her look composed and steady eye bespoke a matchless constancy, and there she stood so calm and pale that but her breathing did not fail, and motion slight of eye and head, and of her bosom warranted that neither sense nor pulse she lacks. You might have thought a form of wax, wrought to the very life was there, so still she was, so pale and fair. Her comrade was a sordid soul, such as does murdered for a meed, who but of fear knows no control, because his conscience, seared and foul, feels not the import of his deed. One whose brute feeling ne'er aspires beyond his own more brute desires, this wretch was clad in frock and cowl, and shamed, not loud to moan and howl, his body on the floor to dash, and crouched like hound beneath the lash, while his mute partner standing near waited her doom without a tear. Yet well the luckless wretch might shriek, well might her paleness terror speak, for there were seen in that dark hall two niches, narrow, deep, and tall. Who enters at such grisly door shall ne'er, I ween, find exit more. In such a slender meal was laid, of roots of water and of bread. By each in Benedictine dress, two haggard monks stood motionless, who holding high a blazing torch showed the grim entrance of the porch, reflecting back the smoky beam. The dark red walls and arches gleam, hewn stones and cement were displayed, and building tomb in order laid. And now that blind old abbot rose to speak the chapter's doom on those the wall was to enclose, alive within the tomb, but stopped because that woeful maid, gathering her powers to speak, essayed. Twice she essayed, and twice in vain. Her accents might no utterance gain, naught but imperfect murmurs slip from her convulsed and quivering lip. At length an effort sent apart the blood that curdled to her heart, and when her silence broke at length, Still, as she spoke, she gathered strength and armed herself to bear. It was a fearful sight to see such high resolve and constancy in form so soft and fair. I speak not to implore your grace. Well know I, for 1 minute's space, successless might I sue. Nor do I speak your prayers to gain, for if a death of lingering pain to cleanse my sins be penance vain, vain are your masses too. I listened to a traitor's tale. I left the convent and the veil. For 3 long years I borrowed my pride, a horse boy in his train to ride. He saw young Clara's face more fair. He knew her of broad lands the air, forgot his vows, his faith forswore, and Constance was beloved no more. The king approved his favourite's aim, in vain a rival barred his claim, whose faith with Clare's was plight, for he attaints that rival's fame with treason's charge, and on they came, in mortal list to fight. Their oaths are said, their prayers are prayed, their lances in that rest are laid. They meet in mortal shock, and hark, the throng with thundering cry shout, Marmion, Marmion, to the sky, De Wilton to the black. How false the charge, how true he fell, this guilty packet best can tell. Then drew a prack from her breast, paused, gathered voice, and spoke the rest. Still was false Marmion's bridal stayed. To Whitby's convent fled the maid, the hated match to shun. Ho, shifts she thus? King Henry cried. Sir Marmion, she shall be thy bride, if she were swore a nun. One way remained, the king's command sent Marmion to the Scottish land. I lingered here and rescue planned for Clara and for me. This caitiff monk for gold did swear he would to Whitby's shrine repair, and by his drugs my rival fair a saint in heaven should be. But ill the dastard kept his oath, whose cowardice hath undone us both. And now my tongue the secret tells, not that remorse my bosom swells, but to assure my soul that none shall ever wed with Marmion. Had fortune my last hope betrayed, this packet to the king conveyed, had given him to the headman's stroke, although my heart that instant broke. Now, men of death, work forth your will, for I can suffer and be still. And come he slow, or come he fast, it is but death who comes at last. Yet death, for me, my living tomb, ye vassals, slaves of bloody Rome, if Marmion's late remorse should wake, full soon such vengeance will he take, that you shall wish the fiery Dane had rather been your guest again. Behind a darker hour ascends, the altars quake, the crozier bends, the ire of a despotic king rides forth upon destruction's wing. Then shall these vaults so strong and deep burst open to the sea's winds sweep. Some traveler then shall find my bones, whitening amid disjointed stones, and ignorant of priest's cruelty, marvel such relics here shall be. Fixed was her look and stern her air, back from her shoulders streamed her hair. The locks they wont her brow to shade stared up erect from her head. Her figure seemed to rise more high, her voice despair's wild energy. had given a tone of prophecy. Appalled, astonished, conclave sate, with stupid eyes the men of fate gazed upon the light-inspired form and listened for the avenging storm. The judges felt the victim's dread. No hand was moved, no word was said, till thus the abbot's doom was given, raising his sightless balls to heaven. Sister, let thy sorrows cease. Sinful brother, part in peace. From that dire dungeon, place of doom, O execution to and tomb. Paced forth the judges three. Sorrow it were, and shame to tell, the butcher work that there befell, when they had glided from the cell of sin and misery. 100 winding steps convey that conclave to the upper day, but ere they breathed the fresher air, they heard the shriekings of despair and many a stifled groan. With speed their upward way they take, such speed as age and fear can make, and cross themselves for terror's sake as hurrying, tottering on. That was Canto II. I'm Jonathan Ingwall. Thank you for listening. Marmion, A Tale of Flood and Field, condensed by Sir Walter Scott, 1808. The breeze which swept away the smoke round Norham Castle rolled, when all the loud artillery spoke, with lightning flash and thunderstroke, as Marmion left the hold. It curled not Tweed alone, that breeze, for far upon Northumbria